All right, another great preferred partner here at Indie Agency News. Fully vetted, committed to the mission of helping indies grow. Let's talk about YouTube. It's one of the largest video platforms in the world, and for most agencies, one of the trickiest to run well. Black box pricing, fragmented expertise, dollars going who knows where. Our preferred partner, Nomology, was built to fix exactly that. Dedicated YouTube specialists, transparent reporting, and a performance reinvestment model that puts optimization savings back into your campaigns. They're already working with Noble People, Pereira Odell, and Obsessed Media, Indie Agency News members. Nomology, transparency meets performance on YouTube. Hey everybody, thanks so much for supporting Indie Agency News. We appreciate the support. We have business to handle here. So Andrew Graff, CEO over at Allen & Gerritsen. So you like a good manifesto. So Andrew is arguing through this manifesto, which you can see on LinkedIn, and we will link to that hourly billing taxes agency energy at 15% or more. Now, he's from Boston, so, there's a tax thing, tea party, whatever. But all kidding aside, it does devalue creative work. It locks the industry into a race to the bottom. And we've talked about this a lot. And this conversation goes much farther past the theory of value pricing to a practical playbook, how an independent shop actually walks away from hours without losing clients, and whether indie agencies have leveraged the holding companies do not. So, of course, we're going to talk to him. So Andrew is joining us from New England. And first of all, what sparked this? What was, you're a very intelligent fella. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. I say that to other people as well. Yeah. But it doesn't, I think where I'm coming from with this is it doesn't surprise me that you would write something like this. What really sparked it for you?
So I'm in Boston.
Yep.
In Philadelphia.
That's right. I forgot about that. Right.
Independence was formed, and thinking about the country's 250th anniversary, and thinking about like what created the Declaration, like what was the history behind independence, and it was sort of that declaration against the hierarchy and the monarchy, and the thinking about all these things that we've talked about for so long, to put a stake in the ground and be like, all right, let's stop talking and start doing, like, bring the indies together, and we're gonna solve this, right? Yeah. There's just like it's not going to get solved by one agency. It's not going to get solved by clients. But like, we're all talking about it. So how do we go from talk to action? And so, as sort of planting a stake in the ground, saying like, let's take some action here, and let's band together, and let's talk about it for solutions. And what does it mean? And I've learned a lot. And so, like, I know what people are up against.
No, it's so true. And it doesn't matter what size you are. You could be a 3-person shop. You could be a 1,200-person shop. It doesn't matter. You started with the hour system, calling it, and your words here, a tyranny. Yeah. Great word, by the way, that condemns the industry to a race to the bottom. So when you look at how independent agencies get squeezed today, where does it show up? Is it the estimate, the scope, the timesheet? Where are we getting squeezed on all of this?
Well, it's funny because this isn't a new conversation.
No, of course it's not.
So probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I was sitting at a 4A's conference, and I was listening to Tim Williams. And a lot of the indies know who Tim is, and he started this journey. And he happened to hit me, and I'd heard him speak a bunch before, but he was talking about like 5 like real things that were inflection points for our industry. And this is like, I'm going to say maybe it's 10 years ago. The whole notion of, are we becoming commoditized? Clients are bringing things, bringing more and more in-house, where technology and automation are, also taking away from our business. There's that margin squeeze. And then how do we do more for less? And, I was like thinking about that, saying like almost 10 years later, like we're still talking about this. And, I think that, this whole time-based thing is over 40 years old,
Sure.
as the pricing model. And we conditioned everybody like that was the standard. And I'm like, okay, so when I hear about these things like commoditization in housing, margin squeeze, technology, automation, and then in recent months, how much AI is, chipping away, do more for, you can do a lot more for less. You can,
Sure.
it's like, okay, when are we just all going to band together and be like, there has to be a new way to do it, but what's in the way? And so my whole thing is like, how do you go from theory to like practicality? Like, how do you put this in place? And and so and like, what are we up against? And I think it's worthy of like, stop talking and start doing.
Yeah, and I think that so there is this argument that floats around, and I don't think it does anybody any favors when a brand might look at something, especially along pricing, and say, well, somebody will do it at this price. I guess I'll go find them.
Right.
So that's a real sticky thing, because the race to the bottom, and I was in radio for a long time. So, I see some analogies. Radio still has a very powerful place, but there's still clearly issues with, and I'm talking about terrestrial radio.
Yeah.
Now we could talk about streaming and profitability of platforms like Spotify and all that, but we won't. But there is that thing of, well, somebody will do it. How do you head that one off at the pass?
Well, I think we have to start with this notion. There's like 15,000 agencies in the US, and that number varies all the time, but
sure,
there's a ton of agencies.
Right.
Which, like, that alone in your statement about, well, somebody will do it. Yeah, there always will be somebody that will do it for less or do it cheaper. But the real question is, like, what's your value as an agency?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's been interesting, some of the consultants in some of their questionnaires are, like, if you didn't exist tomorrow, what would your clients miss the most? And I thought it was like, it sparked that sort of thought, like, if there's that many of us here, the very definition that we are, we could be commoditized. It's like, we gotta, like, where do we add value? Like, why us? What are the things that we do that frankly clients can't do themselves?
Right.
Or don't want to do.
Or we don't want to do. Right.
And, or, how a client business is structured, like an in-house department at a client is not a new thing. It's been around.
No, it's been there forever.
But it's not the core of their business. Okay. Like if it's within an insurance company or a CPG, like the core of their business is what they are selling. That's a department within the business, and the core of what an agency is doing is creativity.
Yeah.
And like, not lose sight of creativity and craft.
That's so true. And I do want to give Bob Hoffman the ad contrarian credit for saying that often. And he's 100% right. He says, and I'm paraphrasing, this is the only business in the world where creativity is the thing. And you're solving a business problem using creativity. You can be creative in any industry, but when you start looking at creativity with a capital C, I guess, there's nothing like it. So I completely understand that. So let's go back to the commoditization thing. You somehow wove together a U2 and surgeon analogy here. So we pay for the experience of U2 and the repair. Well, maybe you pay for the experience, depending on what sort of surgery you are getting. Not the drum strokes and the sponges, but every agency leader knows the reflex answer from the client side is, okay, cool, but procurement needs a rate card.
Right.
What's a move that gets an indie from hours to deliverables without getting locked out of an RFP?
So one is bravery.
True.
But two is who's saying a rate card is ours? Is there a new rate card? Because honestly, like one of the challenges of this is benchmarking. And, and like the 4A's is championing a big benchmark study on, deliverables.
Sure.
As opposed to hours. And, they've always published the hourly rate, but now why not publish a new benchmark study that really requires everybody to sort of rally around and bring that information. But I applaud the 4A's for taking that sort of initiative to really kind of do that, because you do need those things. And in full disclosure, I've been on their compensation committee.
Sure. Yeah.
With the ANA.
Yep.
And that was probably like the biggest thing. Clients have been collecting our data forever. Okay. And especially at the big holding company client level, those procurement teams and all of that, they just, as we submit our rate cards, they're just, saying like, all right, here's this agency's hourly rates, this one. And then they're negotiating us down.
Right.
So can we create a new benchmark? Pay respect to what has been done in the past, but, we're never going to change it if we just keep caving into it. So create a new benchmark. Now, it's not that that's simple. And
no,
I do feel like it needs to start somewhere, not just because there is this unified voice that's like, there are different ways to price. There's not just one way. There's a pricing stack now. You can do some fixed pricing. You can do like all these things.
There's incentivized pricing. I mean, there's all sorts of ways into it. What you're talking about is what you're talking about is what a brand asks for. Well, we want to be modernized.
Yeah.
Well, the compensation model should be modernized as well.
That's because this is coming from.
Yeah, because you talked about, and it's true, 4 decades. I've been in this business, 30 years or so? And it hasn't changed at all. And modernization is equivalent to efficiency. And you talk about this 15% tax. And, the idea of expending an agency's energy is a very real thing. Estimates, logs, adjustments, billing time. I mean, if a small entity, let's take it smaller, strips that out, what does that unlock that a holding company structure couldn't match? And to me, it feels like it's a competitive advantage indie agencies aren't really throwing out there loudly enough. Now, again, we want to be fair that, even though we're indie centric, sure, holding companies and large enterprises, they definitely have a place to be, and they deserve to be in the conversation for a brand that needs that. However, marketers are struggling in certain areas, and it's my contention, and this is simply anecdotal from experience and understanding our members, there could be a potential advantage out there that we're not necessarily naming.
Well, so go back to the U2 example. It's like, we're not paying for the number of hours they play. We pay for the experience, and we're not counting did the drummer, how many drum strokes did
Larry Mullen do?
But if we did,
right?
Like, think about that tax of how much time and effort, and a lot of my agency friends who are trying to kind of break this model will say, well, all right, our operating system is all geared towards hours. Our scopes of work are all there. But like, imagine if you put that effort into managing scope as opposed to managing hours. And that's where the 15% tax is. There's been all these stats that say we spend at least 15% of our time chasing downtime.
Right.
And reconciling it and doing everything that there is. But imagine if you just kind of put the effort, and then, by the way, we spend all that time doing it, and a lot of times in reconciliation, nobody's making you whole either. They'll make you whole, not because it took you longer, But it's a little bit more easier to digest, like saying, all right, well, that wasn't part of the scope or the deliverables or the outputs.
That brings up a really good point, because one of the benefits of time tracking is because scope creep is, oh my God, some of the scope creep stories I hear. So there is potentially one benefit for that. How do you square that? What does protection look like when it's not a clock?
Well, what if it's rounds of revisions?
Sure, that's fair.
Like more tangible. Do you know what I mean? It's more like there's other ways to kind of build a scope that puts in some of the guardrails there.
Sure.
And like it's interesting that again, timesheets have been around for or that whole model's been around for like over 40 years, and we're a 40-year-old agency,
right?
And at this point, we have so much of our own benchmarking of like what it was time-based, but like what did it take for us to do these assignments, and then started to like break it down. Like a lot of the work we do is around reimagining the brand, and what does it take, like what does that take and look at, and what's the range in which we do it for various size clients. And we have a good pulse on what that is. We have a good pulse on what's the cost of the pitch, that was also has been published, so we definitely have some benchmarks to build off of. And those benchmarks, yes, are they time-based? Yeah, but that's historical.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. And now with, we're not starting from scratch, but we're also, not trying to do it the same way as we've done it in the past. I'd say like the biggest challenge is, when you go from sort of like theory to like practicality for agencies, it's not isolated into just pricing.
Right. It's
kind of like, what's your value? How are you changing the way you work? How does AI and technology now fit into the equation?
Right.
But it's the most important question is like, what's the value you provide? Like, I love that question. Like, if you didn't exist, what would your client miss?
Yeah, no, I agree. And you think about it, it's, if you had a choice between a 59-cent hamburger and something that was a little more expensive, but you knew that, it might actually be beef, what are you going to pick? What are you going to pick? Let's talk a little bit more about the taking it on as a community part of it. We've talked a little bit about what this looks like in practice. I mean, do independent agencies have more leverage here than we realize? Or is this, we've talked a lot about historical, so you do think about the many decades of this has been built up as a reflex, less a point in time where you stop and go, is this actually, no, it's simply reflexive in a lot of ways. But do we have more leverage than we really realize in all of this?
I think we do, if you understand the value you're providing, and that, like, is that unique enough to you? Is your competition, a lot more competition for that. I think that, and again, the reason why I feel like there is bring a community together is the uniqueness of independence. They went into this, starting their own agency and all that to basically buck the system, right? Like they had, everybody's worked in holding companies and all, all of that. So like, what was it, those things that you felt like you needed to be liberated from?
Right.
And, at the end of the day, I do believe, especially with indies, it's about like, you just want to do great work that matters, right?
Right.
That moves the needle, that does something, the thrill of it, and that entrepreneurial spirit is sort of that same spirit where we have to have like those conversations together, because, honestly, like some of it's like, and I hear this, like, I don't know how to change, like I want to do it, but I don't know what to do, or our operating systems like aren't set up for this. How are we going to know this information moving forward? or it's too complicated, or it's the fear of change. And that's where I think it's like coming together to like kind of like what's the best ideas, the best, that have worked. Because a lot of the smaller independents, like they never went to the hours based, right?
Sure. Yeah.
They just went right in for the fixed pricing. And whereas their challenge, like they want bigger opportunities and,
Sure.
and all that. And you're fighting against, a lot of forces from procurement to, consultants and clients and all of that. But like if we all of a sudden can kind of say, we're doing this together, then there's strengths in numbers. And I say this because when I first started to take this on 8 years ago, it was like swimming against the tide.
Oh,
it was like,
yeah.
And you have to get your swagger on with it. You have to believe in what you're doing. And all of a sudden this is like, becomes like an onion, and you can't be afraid to walk away.
Right.
And honestly, that like took a lot of like courage to say, you know what, this is the way we price.
Yeah.
Okay. And were there times when somebody said no? Yeah. That was probably about 3% of the time.
It's still batting 600. That's pretty good.
Do you know what I mean? Like it was not like in my head, it was a bigger, like it's a worse problem than it ever would be. And it just took that swagger to believe like, I know we're really good at what we're doing, and this is where we add value. And it took a lot of work to kind of get there. Like I'm not going to pretend this is easy.
Right.
And it's a work in progress. Every new employee comes in, you have to retrain on this thing, because the markets, we're all trained a certain way.
Yeah.
But like, this is why I think indies of all sizes can band together and be brave together.
Yeah.
And learn from each other on it. And, the voice becomes, you can change the industry when there's more voices, not like a couple agencies doing it.
No, it's no.
And we all want it. And then maybe we could teach the holding companies something. I don't know. I mean, they're
fine. Leave them alone. They can do their thing. They can do do your thing, Holdco. Do your thing.
Yeah, this is what this is about, is to like just open up and like really have like what worked, what didn't work.
Yep.
Like what are your fears? What are your challenges? Does it feel too complicated? Learn from each other.
Yeah.
All of that, because that's how we can make change.
Agreed.
That's what this was about. And
Agreed.
It was all in the spirit of, wow, it's 250th anniversary. It was all about independence. Well, let's declare our own.
There we go. I love it.
A
little quick fire for you here. Here we go. Yeah. One sentence ish. First line item you delete from every agency of record contract.
First line item. Hours.
Okay. That was probably too easy. Most compelling analogy you use with a skeptical procurement lead.
It's interesting. I know this was for one sentence.
No, that's fine. It's a run-on. You're from Boston. Everything's a run-on.
Yeah.
I went to Harvard. This is going to be a really long sentence.
What's your agency's method to get people to fill out timesheets? And is that a great basis for a business model?
I love that. That's really great.
Because we all know it's made up after the fact information that we threaten somebody to fill it out.
Right.
And it's not about timesheets.
No.
You know what I mean? It's a test on like, do you really understand what it takes to solve the challenge?
Yeah, exactly. Final question. Red Sox hit 500 this year? And I'll take that as a no. All right. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate all of your support and leadership here in our community, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yeah. Let's keep having this conversation with like more than you and I.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You have a great summer. Thanks for having me on. And let's go.
Let's keep on keeping on, everybody.
There we go. Thank you, Doug.